Hello. Over the last few weeks, the UAMS Fay W. Bozeman College of Public Health has issued Arkansas coronavirus models based on COVID-19 data provided by the State Department of Health. These forecasts, which we share with state officials and issue twice a month, are predictions based on current data at a point in time and are dependent on conditions remaining the same. For our current bi-monthly report, College of Public Health faculty conducted three types of assessments. First, a short-term forecast of confirmed cases, deaths, and hospitalizations. Second, midterm forecasts of COVID-19 cases and deaths. And third, assessments of the impact of COVID-19 among Arkansas counties by race and ethnicity and by age. Short-term forecasts are predicting continued increases in the number of daily cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. The models are forecasting Arkansas will have 63,444 cumulative cases by September 7th. The predicted trend line is flattening somewhat, indicating there may be a decrease in the number of daily cases over the next 2 weeks. Midterm projections indicate, if nothing changes, the state will have nearly 115,000 cumulative COVID-19 cases and 1,700 deaths by October 14th. They also suggest what we have been advocating for weeks, that wearing face masks can reduce the number of cases. Long-term projections suggest the peak of the pandemic will be in late December at just under 80,000 active cases. After peaking, the pandemic will begin a slow, downward trend during the first months of 2021. Now I would like to invite Dr. Mark Williams, Dean of the College of Public Health, to provide more information on the most recent models.
Thank you, Chancellor Patterson. I'm happy to share with you the work of the COVID-19 pandemic research team in the Fay W. Bozeman College of Public Health at UAMS. If you've been following the college's video updates, you'll be familiar with the tremendous work the college faculty are doing. What you may not know is that the faculty are doing this important work on a volunteer basis, and in addition to their other teaching and research responsibilities. They've spent evenings and weekends doing research to understand how the pandemic is behaving in Arkansas and what impact it is having on the state's public health and healthcare services. Like all our videos, I will present the COVID-19 forecasts and projections and some information about disease burden in the state. As previously, I'm beginning with the 15-day forecast of new COVID cases. Our model is forecasting Arkansas will have 63,500 cumulative cases by September 7th. Although I'm not showing these data on this slide, we are also forecasting 4,685 cumulative hospitalizations on September 7th. So, how have our forecasts been doing compared to reality? The forecasts have been pretty accurate. In my last presentation, we forecast Arkansas would have 58,000 cumulative cases on August 24th. In reality, we had 60,278. The difference between our forecast and actual cases was 2,378, or a 4% difference. When I last recorded this presentation, we were forecasting 4,159 cumulative hospitalizations. The actual was 4,028, or a difference of 131, or 3%. I think our models have been doing a pretty good job. As you know, we use models to project the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths 6 weeks out. To create projections, we use two methods and compare the results. The results are very consistent between the two models. What is shown on this slide is a 7-day moving average model predicting cases through October 15th. The model is projecting Arkansas will have almost 113,000 cumulative COVID-19 cases on that date. This slide shows the results of the same model projecting deaths. It's projecting 1,688 cumulative deaths in Arkansas on October 15th. As we introduced last time, another tool public health uses to understand the spread of an epidemic is simulations. Simulations use standard epidemiological models as their basis, and expand on them by manipulating underlying assumptions to reflect different behaviors and conditions. What is shown on this slide are 3 scenarios reflecting different classroom situations. You may recall we introduced this simulation in our last video. On the graph, the red line is in-person classes only. The blue line simulates a hybrid of in-person and online classes. The green line is online classes only. The simulation projects cases through October 24th. As you can see, the lines rather quickly diverge after the first week of classes in August. Both the red and blue continue an upward trajectory. The green line, which represents daily new infections if classes are online only, trends downwards. The simulation suggests new daily infections in Arkansas could be reduced by 6,000 if schools were to offer online classes only. If you've been following these reports, you will recognize this graph. It is the long-term model projecting COVID-19 infections in Arkansas. It is projecting active infections. So, what is an active infection? It is a COVID-19 infection, asymptomatic or symptomatic, which is unresolved. We can think of it as an infection which is capable of transmitting virus to another person. As shown on the slide, we are projecting infections through February 18th, 2021. As you can see, the peak of the epidemic in Arkansas is projected to occur in mid to late December, with approximately 80,000 active infections on December 26th. The same model is projecting approximately 1,972 Arkansans will be hospitalized on December 26th. We also want to understand how the virus is spreading geographically in Arkansas. This slide shows the relative change in COVID cases in the last 2 weeks by county. The red counties have a relative increase of 50% or more over the last report. The counties with the highest relative increase in the last 2 weeks are Van Buren, Searcy, and Stone counties, each with relative increases over 200%. An additional 5 counties had increases over 100%. As you can see from the counties in red, the most rapid relative spread of the virus is now decidedly in rural counties. Urban counties are showing relative decreases from the previous report. This suggests once COVID-19 is introduced in a county, it is relatively stable, then increases rapidly. We saw the same pattern for Arkansas as a whole. Once established in an area, relative rates of increase begin to slow. However, we should not confuse rates with number of cases. In nearly 2/3 of Arkansas counties, 1 person in 100 is tested positive for COVID-19. In 14 counties, 2 in 100 persons has tested positive. We've not examined the differential impact of COVID-19 for a while. I will be presenting information on rates of infection by racial ethnic group, number of comorbid conditions, and age. As shown on this slide, COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted groups in the state, especially the Marshallese population. What is shown are rates per 10,000 persons. Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders, in other words, Marshallese, have a COVID-19 rate more than 35 times that of whites, hospitalization rates at 30 times higher, and deaths at 60 times higher than whites. You can also see rates are higher for African Americans and Latinos. In addition to rather stark differences by race ethnicity, outcomes of COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations are also affected by the number of comorbid conditions. As shown here, there is a strong linear relationship between the number of comorbid conditions and hospitalizations or death. A person with 3 or more comorbid conditions is almost 10 times as likely to be hospitalized as a person with no comorbid condition. Similarly, a patient hospitalized with COVID-19 and 3 or more comorbid conditions is almost 7 times as likely to die than a patient with no comorbid condition. As we presented last time, Cases of COVID-19 are increasing in every age group in the state, but the increase differs among age groups. The highest number and greatest growth in cases is in adults 35 to 59, followed by young adults 18 to 34. These two groups comprise 69% of COVID cases in Arkansas. COVID cases also continue to increase in adults over 60 and children under 17. But as you can see from the curves, these rates are growing at a much slower pace than in adults 18 to 59. Adults 35 to 59 also comprise the group with the highest number of hospitalizations for COVID-19 in the state. As the pandemic in Arkansas continues, faculty in the College of Public Health will continue to conduct analyses and create models which will inform you about the pandemic. We will also look for new ways to understand how COVID-19 is impacting the state. The forecasts and projections I presented show we must continue to be vigilant and continue to do our part to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Some public health scientists believe we are entering a critical time in the pandemic. We do not know how COVID-19 will interact with influenza, but none of the speculations I've read so far are good. But there is one silver lining. The mitigation practices we've been doing, wearing face masks, frequently washing our hands, effectively cleaning surfaces we touch, and avoiding large crowds, also works to mitigate the flu. So, as October approaches, protect yourself, protect your family, and protect Arkansas.